Are you looking for Canon to remove that 30-minute record limit, improve autofocus, or add other video improvements? Well, Canon's releasing a firmware update next week for the Canon EOS R5 and R3. Details coming up, but first I encourage you to subscribe and choose all notifications so you're kept informed on the latest camera gear, news, and rumors. That's right, Canon's releasing a firmware update for the Canon EOS R5 and R3 next week. No mention on the R6 or the Canon 1DX Mark III, and here's what we know, and it's not an awful lot, and which is really surprising when I get to the third point. This is a firmware update that's going to be focused on video. So sorry, photographers, there's really nothing in this for you. We're going to get various video enhancements, and according to Canon rumors, some people that have already sent their camera in for repairs are getting shipped back out with that firmware update, which is surprising on a couple of points here. And the first one I want to talk about is I don't want anybody updating the firmware on my camera until I've had a chance to try it out. Does it work well? And I don't want somebody else to take that responsibility. Oh, let's give this person a new firmware update. And I know some of you out there are thinking, well, not a big deal. So what if they update the firmware? You're going to do it anyways, right? But I know there's a lot of you thinking that, yeah, I wouldn't want somebody else updating the firmware. I want to take my time. I want to stick with the firmware update I've got. And then when I'm ready, I'll go ahead and update the firmware update. Because if this firmware update somehow changes things or makes the camera a little less reliable, as we saw with the Canon EOS R6 in version 1.3 last year, yeah, I wouldn't want anybody updating the firmware update. But the real surprise here is if people are getting the R5 and R3 returned to them with an updated firmware, and that's the tagline, we're not getting any more information. They're not saying, oh, and these are the enhancements that we're seeing. That tells me that the update is probably relatively minor. A minor one indeed, nothing spectacular, nothing like removing that 30-minute record limit, adding waveforms or other enhancements such as having the exposure, auto exposure based on the autofocus point. So if you're tracking a subject and it's locked onto that person, I would really love the exposure to meter based on that. And talking of metering, to be able to choose different metering modes, because if you're shooting in video, you don't get a choice. If you're shooting in stills, you get multiple choices between the different metering modes you can choose. But that's not the case in video. So there's lots of opportunities for improvement, certainly on the video side, and the Canon R5C shows us certainly what's possible. Boy, waveforms, I would really, really love that, and that would help out a lot. And also removing that 30-minute pesky record limit, and to me, that's something I would really expect to see in a firmware update. We see it on the R7, the R10. It costs $979, a fourth the price of the Canon EOS R5, and there's no record limit. I'm sure they can do it. A lot of people are making excuses as to why Canon can't do this. Nonsense. They can do it. They can certainly do it. And I'd love to see that 30-minute record limit. But again, if, according to Canon rumors, people have sent their camera in for repair and are just getting them back with that updated firmware update, come on, one of the first things you'd check, wouldn't it be that 30-minute record limit? It's certainly, if you're a video person, if you're a stills person, if you're a photographer, I get not checking. But if a lot of people are getting their cameras back with this updated firmware and we're not hearing anything, that kind of makes me think that it's just a minor update, some minor video enhancements. I don't know what to really think of this one. So when it comes to rumors and all that stuff credible regarding Canon rumors does a very good job of reporting information. I just find this one too light on detail, not specifying anything other than video enhancements or bug fixes. Come on, there must be more. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to stay by the wire. If I see any update from Canon rumors or anywhere else, Digicami, anywhere, any time of day, I'm going to put out a video telling you guys what is going to be in this firmware update, when it drops, and all that wonderful stuff. And I'll probably be one of the first people to update it. And you might be thinking, yes, but Simon, we haven't heard from you in about 2 weeks. And actually, it was about a week ago that I updated my last video. Not 2 weeks, but it wasn't really that big of news. So you're probably thinking that I haven't updated in, well, weeks or months. It's summer. There's not a lot going on in the camera world. And I had 2 videos that I was ready to record. And at the last minute decided I'd rather spend time outside because it's one of those videos that most of you would click off, wouldn't even bother looking at, sub 1,000 views. And I got to be honest with you, this is not me looking at quitting the channel. But you see, the weather we're having here in Ontario is absolutely spectacular. And I'm talking like 1980 spectacular, where we're getting temperatures in the mid 70s up to the 80s. And this week, it's been pushing into the mid 80s. And here's the big deal. no humidity. I mean, you're in the shade and you've got a beautiful breeze. The weather is spectacular. And either you're starting off the day with a beautiful blue sky with not a cloud in the sky, and then as the day starts to progress, you get these light, fluffy clouds giving you some shade when you're out walking, so the air never feels superheated and supercharged. It's absolutely beautiful. So with very little news going on, with nothing really happening in the camera world, I've done something I haven't done in a long time. I've unmounted the Canon EOS R5 from this tripod, put in a battery. I've taken out the 24-105. I've taken out the RF 100 to 500 millimeter, and I've just started enjoying the camera. I've started taking pictures. And a couple of times, I just sat down with the camera beside me, looked over it and glanced at it a couple of times and just thought, wow, that's pretty impressive. Just thinking about the different technology that goes into the camera, a device that's so small. And I started to clean it. I started to dust it off and I thought, yeah, let's use this a little bit more. I started to appreciate it. I started to kind of go back to why I bought it as a hobby for something I enjoy. Whereas over the last couple of years, it's become more of a workhorse. It's become a pro tool for helping develop content for this channel. So as soon as news comes out, as soon as rumors come out, I'm out there to present the information to you so you can get it quicker than pretty well any other place. And I really enjoy that. The weather that we're having right now, and here we are, we're at what? It's July the 15th. It's currently 75 degrees, partly cloudy. It went up to a high of 82 degrees today, partly cloudy, not at all hot. We went for a walk around, what was it? 2:30, just a quick walk. I like to take walks in the morning and the afternoon to take a break, get out there, smell the fresh air. And it was a little hot, but because of the clouds coming and going, it didn't feel oppressive. I enjoyed that walk, came in, got back to my work. Lots of standards and policy type stuff I've working on today. And just absolutely enjoying the weather. It's just absolutely terrific. And I have a lot of behind the scenes stuff I want to talk to you guys about a little later, such as the Canon EOS, the Canon RF 100 to 500 millimeter. I haven't done a full review on it right now, but one of the things I want to talk to you about, I've looked at a lot of the videos before I bought this, and I was on a boat recently in Toronto, in the Toronto harbor, and shooting at 100 millimeters, it was amazing how solid the stabilization is in this lens. It's truly amazing. Coupled with the R5s at IBIS, I was able to hold it handheld shooting the cityscape, and it kept it very, very stable. And considering I'm on a boat, it just did an incredible job. So I want to talk to you guys a little bit more about the 100 to 500 millimeter, some other things that have been going on. But this video is all about the firmware update for the Canon EOS R5 and the R3. And I'm still checking daily for updates, for news. I'm checking Digicami, I'm checking Nikon rumors, 4/3 rumors, Canon news. It's a lot of sites that I check, plus emails that I get providing me with information. And there's really very little going on right now. But as soon as I see something worthy of your time, I'm going to have a video. I'm going to produce it. I'm going to get it out there. I first saw this update on the Canon EOS R firmware at, 8 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time. I wanted to check earlier, but I opened up my laptop, and as soon as I opened it up, I thought, oh, what did I want to check? I forgot. But thankfully, this isn't one of those things where I noticed it the day after and being something big like this. So the Canon EOS R5 firmware update probably be 1.6, or it could be a 1.5.1, 1.5.2. What do you think we're going to see in this firmware update? And do you find it rather surprising that the article, the story on Canon Rumors, talks about it being a video-centric firmware update, that people already have it in their hands, yet it's not released to the general public, and we have no mention of what this firmware update does, despite it being in people's hands? I find that really suspect, very, very strange. So who knows, maybe some more information will come out over the weekend. And yes, I am going to be out there. I'm going to be enjoying the weather. I was thinking of going to the lake tomorrow. Just be absolutely beautiful. We have this rather large lake close to us. And no, it's not Lake Ontario. It's Lake Simcoe. It's one of those lakes that's very, very big. You can see it on a map of North America. You can even see it on a map of the planet if it takes up your full screen. It's a rather large lake, produces really big waves, but it's warm enough to swim in. At this time of year, the water temperatures probably between, 75 and 81 degrees, especially in the south part of the lake, which is where I don't like to swim. I like to swim where it's over my head, and usually it's closer to around 75, 76 degrees, which is absolutely perfect. That's what I've got planned for this weekend. And of course, I'm getting a new mattress showing up, which I'm really excited about. And something else I picked up just recently, only cost a couple of bucks on Amazon. Yeah, a bit more than a couple of bucks, like $20. A bunch of stepping rings. I was watching a video by Camera Conspiracies. He put it out a year ago, and he was talking about how, I can't remember exactly what he called the video, but he more or less said, you know what, don't use ND filters, variable ND filters. They're garbage. They don't work. There's a waste of time, something to that effect. And caught my interest enough to watch it because I don't know if you remember, about a year ago, I said, you know, I'm going to put aside my Kinko variable ND filters, and I'm just going to shoot with the lens and a hood. Shooting with a hood to me is far more important than a variable ND filter, because really what ND filters allow us to do, especially a nice variable ND filter, is control that depth of field. And you can, yes, control that depth of field other ways by reducing the space between the camera sensor or the camera itself and the subject, and increasing the distance between the, did I say increasing or decreasing? Let me say this again. You want to decrease the distance between the subject and the camera while increasing the distance between the subject and the background. That will also help create a more shallow depth of field. And that works really well. But there's several things that I don't like about using variable ND filters. One of the things is once you put one of those on, your lens cap isn't going to work. You're going to need one of these stepping rings. And not only that, the lens hood won't fit. So now you need to use, again, a stepping ring. You put the lens hood on, but something else strange happens as well. You see, I'm shooting with a 24-105, and I bought a lens hood specifically for it, a video lens hood. So that way you don't see the lens hood in the frame. Now, if I'm panning a little bit, then yes, because of the IBIS, it will pick up on that lens hood, but I can do one of two things. I can crop in post, or I can adjust it to around 30-35 millimeters. But if I'm shooting without moving the camera, or if I'm shooting on a tripod, then that video hood doesn't get in the way, and it really helps improve the contrast, because at this time of year, if you're shooting around midday, the sun's almost directly above, and you still get the sunlight hitting the lens right from the top, and you lose your contrast. And I've seen this happen so many times, and it's really, really frustrating. So the one thing I always prioritize is having a lens hood, and especially a video lens hood right on the camera. And do I have it? Yeah, it's right here. You can see it's rectangular because it's a video lens hood, whereas, do I have one down here? Here's a couple of lens hoods. They're circular, and this is what photographers use, but a videographer, and this one cost $100, I think, on B&H. No, it was $100 on B&H, and I got it directly through the manufacturer. It was a little cheaper. It came to about $80 US. And I've been loving this thing. The video that I shoot with is a whole lot better with this. I used to use one of these, and I shot with a 50mm most of the times, but when I was shooting with this 24mm, the 24-105, I was basically moving it to 50mm most of the time, so that way this lens hood would work. So rest assured, by using this video lens hood on a 24-105, if I'm not panning around a lot, then it works perfectly. It's not going to show up. If I am panning, I'll usually go to around 35mm. But here's the thing, if I'm using a stepping mode or putting a variable ND filter in here, I then have to take this 24-105 and move it to about 50mm. I love the 24-105 f4. It's a terrific lens, but 50mm to 105 or 35mm to 105 doesn't sound nearly as good. You lose that wide open option. So a very interesting video that he put out talking about variable ND filters. And I won't go as far as he says as saying they're absolutely useless and don't use them. But I think it's knowing what you shoot. And for me, I shoot documentary style. It's very important for me to capture my subject, whatever it is, the background, everything, as close to the way my eye sees it as possible. Try to replicate that dynamic range, trying to replicate those colors, all that wonderful stuff. And to be able, especially when you're shooting outside, I do most of the times want to capture that background or even the foreground as much as I can in detail without it being in a shallow depth of field. So I also shoot at 30 frames per second. I don't like to play around with that shutter rule. I like to keep it at around 180 degrees. But there are times where, yeah, I'm willing to let that change so that way I can shoot. And, well, you know what I'm talking about? And I know, I've said this many times. The reason we have that 180 degree shutter rule is to make things look lifelike, to get that motion blur realistic. But there are times where it's okay to violate that rule, to play around with the shutter values because you want to do something else. You want to have a more shallow depth of field, and you don't have enough room to make that change by adjusting your subject's position relative to the camera in the background. And sometimes you can play around with that shutter speed and it's going to work for you. Sometimes you can even go up to 1/500th of a second and it's not going to look absolutely crazy. So anyhow, if you want to stay up to date on the latest news and rumors, and if you want to find out more about this firmware update for the Canon EOS R5 and R3, I almost said the R6, but if it's also going to be coming out for the R6 or the 1DX Mark III, and what, pray tell, video capabilities this firmware update is supposed to deliver. As if it's already out there, if people already have this firmware update, wow, by the time I publish this video, we should already have that information, right? That's what I'm thinking. Let me know in the comment section down below, but that's it for now. Don't forget to subscribe and also choose all notifications. By choosing all notifications, as soon as I publish a video, you're going to get the latest news and information to stay informed on, well, things such as, well, all things camera, including firmware updates. You can see I'm starting to get tired. I'm already starting to think about relaxing for the weekend. Another beautiful weekend. Anyhow, all I want to say right now is thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again soon.